If you grew up in the 1980s and you visited a video store, chances are if you haven't rented Defcon 4, then you're probably more than aware of it from its fantastic and misleading artwork. So how great can a Canadian film be with great artwork in a very low budget? Guess we're going to find out. I'm Bob, you're you, and welcome to Classically Bad Cinema. Another film with astronauts and nuclear devastation. But unlike Buck Rogers floating around space none the wiser, our three heroes are awake for every thrilling moment. Defcon 4 is our friends to the north belated contribution to the post-apocalyptic film craze that began around the mid-70s and pretty much ran its course by the film's release in 1985. It falls in the category of promising films that ultimately didn't deliver. Released by New World Pictures in March of 1985, it grossed over $1 million against a budget of just $800,000. The film had a strong opening with its "It is a day after tomorrow. The ultimate nuclear defense system has been perfected. Security has been achieved. Global conflict is now unthinkable." Well, cool then. All kidding aside, it's one of the better cost-conscious nuclear holocaust films, and the opening really sets the mood. The only thing really missing are some scantily clad women rolling around the letters of the title.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, of course not.
Our three astronauts are 407 days into their 21-month mission. They're part of a top-secret nuclear missile launching satellite called Nemesis, which is more of a space station, but we're going to pretend that it's a satellite. The crew learns that a U.S. Navy transport ship was hijacked that was carrying 11 Tomahawk cruise missiles. Each is equipped with a 1-megaton nuclear warhead by a group that's loyal to the Libyan government. Well, at least we know where they got it from. One of the missiles is launched into Russia. Although it fails to detonate, it pushes Cold War tensions to the breaking point, resulting in Lieutenant Commander Cecil Howell picking up the Russian ballistic missile strikes on his infrared scanner just 2 days later.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
The space station/satellite's doctor, Eva Jordan, insists that they fire all their missiles, but Captain Walker refuses until DEFCON 1 is declared. In a remarkably clever, tense, and chaotic scene, the three observe as cities around the world are nuked one by one.
Well, so much for that whole global conflict is now unthinkable.
Where were you on that one, dipshit?
We fast forward 45 days with the crew orbiting a potentially dead planet, holding out hope for survivors. As they wait for the fallout to settle, trying to locate potential areas of Earth that could potentially support life, Hal receives a message from his wife in Oregon. He learns the town escaped the initial blast, but many of the residents, including the sister, were blinded by the explosion, and radiation sickness is ravaging the remaining survivors. If that news wasn't catastrophic enough, not only is she sick, but their baby died.
Could have done without that.
The crew is at odds on whether to return to Earth. Walker is dead set against the idea. Unfortunately, the craft's guidance system is mysteriously reprogrammed and makes a decision for him, forcing the satellite/space station to return to Earth. Captain Walker orders all missiles to be launched to prevent them from detonating during re-entry or from the impact during landing. Howe jettisons the missiles, programming them to explode in 60 hours, but one fails to launch, remains in a silo as they plunge to Earth. I wonder if that little tidbit's going to be important later on in this film. The craft lands, and when I say lands, I mean smacks down on the beach in Nova Scotia, knocking Dr. Jordan unconscious, which is unfortunate for her that she's going to miss the remaining good parts of this film. After the hard, soft, rough, gentle landing, they discover that the worthless control module landed the craft with the only exit hatch buried several feet in the sand. Now, this is going to work in their favor when Captain Walker and Howe hear knocking on the hull and attempt to dig themselves out, believing that they found potential survivors. However, as Howe attempts to get through the sand, something grabs him. In an attempt to save Howe, Walker gets pulled up through the sand and is killed rather gruesomely. At least I think so, by the severed hand.
Way to go, a-hole!
Howe ain't got time for this shit, wisely seals up the hatch and waits until nightfall before attempting to leave the ship again. Before venturing out in search of help, Howe leaves the still unconscious Dr. Jordan a note. "Dear Jordan, stepped out, cannibals ate Walker, borrowed some pants and a blouse, hope you don't mind, Howe." Unfortunately for him, he stumbles upon a gang of starving, insane, radiation-poisoned cannibals eating Captain Walker. Fortunately for them, he stumbles upon a gang of starving, insane, radiation-poisoned cannibals eating Captain Walker. Howe, who definitely ain't got time for this shit, manages escape to only get caught by somebody else. Damn, this dude sucks at this whole getting help shit. We're introduced to Vinnie McKinnon, a survivalist who's fortified his house with barbed wire and booby traps and has a woman named JJ locked in the basement. Why, may you ask? It's never said and gets completely ignored throughout the rest of the film, although I have my guesses. To make matters even worse, this is where the film takes a hard nosedive. After a quick dinner of eating whatever the hell that is,
What the hell is that?
Vinny leaves to check a booby trap that was tripped. JJ manages to escape the confines of the basement after learning about the stockpile of food aboard the fallen craft and makes a deal to help Hal escape and sail away in the boat that she knows the location of. Unfortunately, they are caught before they could even attempt an escape. Vinny doesn't kill Hal only after he mistakenly mentions Jordan's back at the wreck.
You're a stupid dumbass.
Because I guess the only thing better than having one woman locked in the basement is having two women locked in the basement. On the way to the beach, the film makes one last attempt to kick ass as Vinny's armor-plated kill dozer is attacked by terminals, those crazy, fun-loving, and still hungry radiated cannibals from earlier. Unfortunately for them and us, we're introduced to the much more dangerous and so much more shittier maniacs from Fort Liswell. Corporal Lacey sets up an ambush at the Nemesis landing site, and before any of us knows what hit us, they, along with Vinny's ride and the satellite/space station itself, are hauled away to their makeshift fort. And just out of curiosity, why are they using people? What about the killdozer? This, of course, just turns out to be pretty much your stereotypical shithole camp of any post-apocalyptic warlord. We find out that Marine Corporal Lacey, who's sporting an Air Force rank patch on his uniform, I guess continuity wasn't the only thing that would destroy the nuclear exchange, is not the head honcho here. In the spirit of great villains in post-apocalyptic movies such as Negan, the Governor, Lord Humongous, Toe Cutter, and others, we get teenage Gideon Hayes.
No! God, please, no! No!
He not only happens to have dated JJ before the world ended, but is also the son of a high-ranking naval officer who knew about the Nemesis program. Well, ain't that just lucky? Of course, Gideon is just
You're evil and that's okay.
tormenting the paralyzed boomer by throwing his food on the muddy ground, even after getting him the information he so desperately needs. And why is he evil? Well, it's never abundantly clear, nor does it really matter because the character completely sucks. Gideon was on the helicopter that crashed due an EMP while attempting to fly to a safety bunker. The only survivors were him, JJ, Marine, Air Force, Army, Naval Corporate Lacey, and Boomer, who's a Navy technician and was paralyzed in the crash. We discover Boomer used the satellite equipment taken from the helicopter that not only survived the EMP, but the crash itself, and was able to force the space station to crash land on the beach. Because, hey, why not make this whole Gideon plotline even more absurd and unbelievable? Gideon needs the space station's computer equipment to locate a safety bunker to seek shelter from the radiation and fallout that's covering the globe. He estimates they'll all die in a couple of months when the winds blow the fallout to the area. Let's just take stock at where we are since they crash landed on the beach and Walker was sauteed. So far, we've had a lackluster hero who sucks at getting help and pretty much screws up everything while trying to find said help. We're not in a desert like the poster, but in a Canadian forest. There's a creepy, perverted survivalist who comes off as one step above Buffalo Bill, with a young woman locked in his basement, who only seemed to agree to help because then he could have two women locked in the basement. And a local armed camp that isn't run by some intimidating soldier or bloodthirsty Mohawk badass, but a 17-year-old kid.
This is the worst. You are the worst. I hate looking at your face. I want to smash it.
I mean, where the hell is Tina Turner when you need her? It just makes you wonder if the writer just said F it at this point.
That's it, I'm out of here.
And it doesn't get any better as the remaining part of the film focuses on how JJ and the now conscious Dr. Jordan and Buffalo Vinny trying to escape the camp and get to the boat that Gideon has prepared for himself. Oh yeah, and that 60-hour delay timer that Hal programmed in a still unlaunched nuke in the weapons bay is steadily ticking away.
And everybody knows, so are the days of our lives.
After an evening of Gideon being rejected by JJ and using an abusing Boomer to find the coordinates to a bunker he's so obsessed with, he places Hal, Jordan, Vinny, and JJ through a mock trial, finding them all guilty, of course, and sentencing them to death, officially destroying any lingering hope that the second half isn't going to completely suck. During the hanging, Boomer crawls to the stands to shoot Gideon, who offers to pardon whoever steps forward and willing to pull the lever and hang the others. Hal ain't got time for this hanging shit. Step forward, I guess to bluff killing the others? Exactly what is the plan here?
Just use your plan A.
Because it's a hell of a lot better than your plan B, which you don't even have.
There is no way Hal knew what Boomer was planning. Really changes how you see Hal when you realize he tried to hang the others to save himself. Gideon is shot in the leg. That'll teach you, Gideon, to f up my food order.
I said over easy!
This allows Hal to escape in ensuing chaos. Boomer, not so much. Jordan is released to treat Gideon's wound and attempts to kill him with an overdose, but is killed in her attempt as well. Damn, how hard is it to kill this kid? It's like watching the Wile E. Coyote go after the Roadrunner. And if this plot point with Gideon isn't nauseating enough at this point, the film decides to add to the overall misery because of course it would. Hal goes to Vinny to grab some weapons and the keys to the kill dozer to rescue Buffalo Vinny, who I guess we're just going to completely forget that had the underage girl in the basement.
Well, that's something I remember people talking about, but I don't recall.
Gideon and Lacey take JJ aboard the sailboat and attempt to sail to the bunker that Hal somehow swims to. He attempts to free JJ, but again, he's just so bad at this whole hero rescue thing. Not quite, but during the ensuing fight where JJ pretty much saves herself, Gideon and Lacey are thrown overboard. They return to the camp to find most of the inhabitants have been killed in the shootout.
I got news for you, pal. You ain't leading but two things right now. Jack and shit. And Jack left town.
Gideon notices a capsule nuclear silo.
Should all those be empty?
Hal, Buffalo Vinny, who we're still pretending isn't a pedophile, and JJ observe the nuclear explosion as the second half of the film is put out of its misery. And we learn that the final victory has been won. Mankind can rest in peace. Yeah, whatever that means. But more importantly, the end. What did I think of this sci-fi masterpiece? Ho, where to begin? I won't start by saying that there's actually 5 levels of Defcon, or that the coordinates in the movie are actually in the middle of the Gulf of Bothnia. I'd like to say,
This sucks, and it's horseshit. But I'm too polite to say anything, because I'm a class act.
but truth be told, this is the tale of 3 films. The first is the amazing artwork that really pulls you in, but really doesn't have anything to do with the film itself. The second is the first act that does an amazing job with the space scenes, score, set design, interesting characterization, and the unique way that it creates a bleak, intense atmosphere as war breaks out while the 3 astronauts orbit high above the devastation through the crash landing and the brief fight for survival against crazed survivors. The third is the second half and the wasted potential of the film itself. It makes it seem as if no one really had any idea what direction to take once they return to Earth. And it's unfortunate too, because right up to the point when everyone is captured by Lacey, Defcon 4 was a very entertaining post-nuclear Holocaust film. The story stops dead the moment that we arrive at Fort Liswell, and it never recovers. Worse yet, the crazed terminals are completely wasted, and we're forced to focus instead on Gideon and his men that just suck complete ass.
This is the worst.
Imagine if Hal and friends' survival depending on them grappling with the much creepier and bloodthirsty terminals instead of the nonsense with Gideon. The film tries entirely too hard to make him seem formidable and falls completely short. Why filmmakers chose him is beyond me. Lacey would have been a much better and much more believable adversary, but he's a lousy character in his own right. The film semi-attempts some backstory, which this would have given him some much needed depth and reasoning for doing what he does to survive.
You think I'm ruthless because I want to be. It's the only way to administer limited resources in an unstable situation, can't you?
But it's all irrelevant since his action from introduction to detonation are anything but mere survival. Why anyone would take orders or choose to follow him is beyond me. No one's survival depends on him. It's even more maddening when you factor in that the time from the beginning of World War III and when the space station gently crashes lands on Earth is less than 2 months. So in that time, Gideon went from high school punk JJ dump to creating a survivors camp with an army of armed men at his disposal. He's not the only poorly written character either. Hal the hero left much to be desired.
No, this can't be the start, can it? Movie, hey movie, can I see your supervisor movie? This will not stand.
And left me yearning for a true Canadian hero. He comes off as such a wimp and spends most of the film either captured by Vinny or Gideon, making it very difficult to get behind his efforts of survival or attempts to save others. And in fact, his survival seemed more reliant on those he's supposed to actually be trying to help. I mean, it was Boomer shooting Gideon that allowed him to escape the execution. Again, I'm not entirely convinced he wasn't trying to save himself. And in a climatic fight on the boat, it's JJ that throws Lacey and Gideon overboard. Then there's Vinny. One moment he's a disturbed Buffalo Bill pedophile wannabe survivalist who's going to kill Hal with an underage girl locked in his basement. The next, everyone's like, yeah, this dude is totally cool. It's creepy to say the least, and the filmmakers completely ignore it like it never happens. Besides all this film is worth watching, or at least the first half. Just keep in mind, Defcon 4 is the closest to wasted potential you're ever going to find. You'll be drawn to the awesome movie art and premise. You're going to stick around for the well-done first act in space and clever use of visuals to show nuclear devastation. However, once we get back on Earth, its focus on a heartbroken high school lover turned fascist dictator obsessed with computer passwords, bunker coordinates, and a pointless mock trial will leave you anxiously awaiting the detonation of the unlaunched nuke, or at the very least wondering why you didn't turn it off earlier. Well, that's all I got. If you enjoyed this film, please hit that like and subscribe button below. If you didn't like it, then tell those fun-loving cannibals to hit that like and subscribe button below. But until next time, I'm Bob, you're you. So long, everybody.
Don't pick them up! Look, don't pick them up! Don't do it! Look,